Hi, hello, hi all.
Hi, Owen, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Oh, great stuff. Hi, Hannah. Hannah, hello. Hi, Graham.
Good morning.
Great. Oh, great stuff. Great stuff. I can hear you all. Hi, how are you? Hope you're all well. Hope you're all well.
All good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well, thank you. It's been really, the weather's been very good this week. Very sunny. So and they're gradually allowing us out of our cages, step by step. So things are getting
things
to
are
return.
things are looking up.
Things are looking up. Things are looking out. Things are looking out. Hi, Dudley. How are you?
Morning, Wayne. Not too bad, thanks, yourself.
I'm well, thank you. I'm very well. Hannah, how was your house move? Was it okay?
We're still moving. We're moving today, but what happened last week? They cut off our internet, so we've had the whole week with such bad internet. I went to just outside my friend's because he left out one of those little boxes that has a SIM card that lets you have unlimited data.
Okay.
So we got that. So we got that on Monday, and we've been using that, but it's a little bit temperamental.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So it keeps stopping.
Yes. Yeah, no worries. Well, glad you could join us. I mean, yeah, I know the whole. Moving is a.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say any more. I wouldn't say any more. If you can move successfully, well done. It's tough. It's just crazy.
There's a lot of problems that occur.
Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you something. My wife hates moving so much that this flat that we're in, we actually had to buy the flat because we had rented this flat. She just wouldn't move. I'd gone. I'm sure I've told the story to the others. Gone along, I'd viewed with View. I think I spent about 6, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and she just wouldn't move. So I just called the landlord up and just said to him, "Listen, can we just buy the place?" And he said, "Okay." So that's she just wouldn't move. So trust me, I appreciate the whole moving is an issue, is a drama. It's a drama. Cool, great stuff. So yes, I know. So yeah, so sorry. I think in my busyness, I didn't upload the class last week. I've uploaded it now.
Okay,
so you can always go back and look at it. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'd given your colleagues, I don't know if James maybe had got in touch with you. We're going to be going through a few questions just to kind of get a feel for here he is. He's just coming in. Let's just admit him. Just to get a feel for the type of questions we can see in regarding this topic we're looking at systems and controls. Oops, 1 second. Let me admit all. I think he's coming in on 2 networks. Right. So I guess one of the other reasons I've always particularly preferred, you might not know it, but it is a bias for me putting audit in the March to June term, just because I think audit is the kind of thing that you could, not that you would want to study anything in your garden, but you could sit outside and read a scenario and pick out issues and come up with ideas. And hi, James. Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Cool. And you could pick out scenarios and you would still be answering the question and still doing well. You're not under the same duress of trying to study performance management in the summer or study tax in the summer. It's a very different type of subject where you can actually relax. In fact, I think you need to be relaxed when you're reading audit, because it's just trying to be able to pick out, to spot as many issues. And primarily your exam is very much about issues, whether or not we're talking about audit risks in general, or whether or not we're looking at sort of, if you like, your control risks, which is what we're really focusing on today, which is what the subject, the topic, sorry, the window's open, I'll close in a second. The topic of last week really was. So the principle, if you remember, really was this, that we want to minimize our audit risk. Now, we know that audit risk is made up of 3 risks, if you like: inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. Let's just close the window. Inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. And again, hopefully, as we're studying, you're hopefully getting that big picture of you carrying out this engagement where you need to start your planning early, and as part of your planning you want to understand the organization, and in trying to understand the organization you are relating with the senior management team at the organization, with the board, if you like, trying to understand the organization. You know you can't test every single document, but if you understand the controls in place, or if you understand the culture in place, which was why last week the first acronym I gave you was CRIME. And CRIME stood for control activities, information systems, control activities, R for risk management, I for information systems, M for monitoring, and E for control environment. And those 5 areas cover literally in any syllabus, right through the spectrum, on how an organization manages its internal systems, if you like. And what we're doing is kind of spending time now sort of reading through. So think of audit exams like this. You will get a question on like audit risks, which you were doing, hopefully you've looked at. So this is really looking at the financial statements, just you're looking through, and it'll tell you something like there's a problem there in that balance. So what's the risk that it's wrong? And then you're sort of picking out and saying, oh, if you like, if they've not counted that correctly, there's a risk is overstated or understated. That's always the consequence. And what would you do? What kind of procedure would you do, if you like? So, and the audit procedures are sort of your AE, IOU type kind of questions. You know, I would analyze, I would inquire, I would observe, done. Now, what we're looking at here is, before you actually start doing some actual test of detail, you want to test the controls, or you want to look at the controls, you want to understand the controls, if you like. So your questions here in any exam, which you will get, is a question where you get a big scenario, you have to pull out all the control issues, and you have to make some kind of recommendations, if you like, as to what. And the thing is, I think it's one of the fairer topics in that you should be able to pull out anything that you just feel, that just seems a bit wrong. And many of the control recommendations you make, the control risks, is because what you'll see is when you're making the control recommendations, you're really saying that I think these control activities should be in place, or I think this is a risk because there's a lack of, and I gave you another acronym of these control activities, and the control activities is a C from crime, really, where you had things like lack of segregation of duty, there's no monitoring, there's no authorization, if you like, they don't have information systems in place, if you like, they don't have physical controls. So really, it's just finding out what those risks are by reading the scenario and literally pulling them out. So again, I mean, I know it's just that I got some work from Natalie. I mean, really, we're going to look at question 164. James, don't worry, because I noticed that from that PDF I sent you, the question is question 217. So you have all the questions, they're just numbered differently.
Okay.
So it's 217. So we're going to go through. I would like you to kind of, do a read up on. So what I want you to do, because it's like a workshop kind of thing. I'm not. So I want to ask, if the weather's too nice to ask, if you've done it, if you've not done it. Honestly, I mean that. It's a nice day, and I want you to kind of enjoy, kind of reading through the question. So if you have done it, please do 167. It's fine. Just, you just do that, and then when the rest of your colleagues have finished 164, we'll go through it. But from what I've marked, from what I received from one of you, I thought you guys, I don't know, sorry, Natalie, have you had a chance to look at, you probably haven't had a chance to look at my feedback. Sorry, I sent it only this morning. You probably haven't.
I've logged in and I've probably watched about a minute of it.
That's fine. But it was really good, and I don't know, and I want to ask, when you were reading the scenario, were you just able to pick out were they kind of not obvious, but were you like, oh yeah, okay, I see the risk there. I see the risk there.
I don't think it was a really bad one. I thought it was quite sort of comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, and most of them are. Most of them are. We, of course, as we do more, but we're just looking at systems. So what you were doing was looking at a cash system, right? It's possible next time you could be looking at a payroll system, or you could be looking at an inventory system. So all you're doing is, it just feels a bit like you're thinking, the same person's doing the same thing, the same person's doing too many things, or you just kind of pick it up. And so if you can pick it up, the other thing I want to highlight with all audit questions, which is why I guess this is the advantage of coming into a class, is that you must state the consequence of that risk. You cannot just say, oh, I've identified it. No, even if they don't tell you to write the consequence, you must always state the consequence. So think of a half mark for stating what it is, a half mark for stating the consequence of that risk, and then another half mark for the, if you like, the recommendation, or a full mark for the recommendation, if you like. And recommendation is anything you really would do if you were in that position, and we can then test it. So there are no fixed type of answers, but our task in audit is to put down our own answers and then look at what the examiner is writing, and then kind of marry or kind of get to their own language a little, but your answers are just as valid. Okay, great stuff. So it is question 164 in your exam kit. Let me just go to that. And so I'm going to go into the PowerPoint, because the PowerPoint allows me to do a bit more writing. I'll just go there now. 1 second. Let's just go there. Here we are. I'll just come here. So share screen. Yeah, here we are. So for you guys, it's 164, but for James and myself, it'll be 217. It's exactly the same question. So please, I mean, it's a 20 marker, and I think on average it's about 1 point. I'll give you 1.5 minutes per minute. Sorry, per mark. So just looking for my calculator there. So say about so say 9:40. So we'll go all the way till, let's just say 25 past 10. But what I want you to do is really take your time to kind of type out your answers. But when I say type, I'll probably even give you till 20 past. When I say type out your answers, type out the main point. You can always expand on it. That's the point. You want to be able to know that, I've picked out all the risks, and I can write some, recommendations. So say 20 past and try and pick that out. And even for the 4 marker that you see in front of you, it probably is, you probably know the answer. Don't think, there's anything extremely technical. You probably know the answer anyway. We'll go through their answers anyway and see what we do. So please have a go. This is a good chance to write down some of the things. And even Hannah, I know you weren't with us, I agree, but really, honestly, just do it anyway, and you'll see that, like I say, what it is fair that way. You'll be like, oh yeah, general experience, I could pick out most of these. Cool. Okay, great stuff. So yeah, let's work till about say 20 past. We'll reconvene and then cross-check our answers. And Natalie, if you do 167, please.
Okay, William, thanks.
No worries. Hannah, I think I lost you there because of your internet. Yes. Hannah, are you back? Yes. Hannah, are you back?
Hi, yeah, I'm so sorry. It might keep dropping out.
I know, sorry. I understand. But it's okay, don't worry. It's not too bad, because what I was just saying to your colleagues was that we're going to do question 164.
164.
Yes, from your exam kit. And I know you weren't with us last week, but don't worry. You can probably just see what you can do for the first 4 marks. Don't worry too much about that. But try and pull out all the, just put out any risks you see or any problems you see in the system. as you read through the scenario and make any recommendations is pulling out the main points and writing some recommendations. I'm going to go through it. Like I say, I know you haven't you weren't with us last week, but even still, I think you'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh, I actually can pick out most of these. So we'll do that till about 10:20. So hopefully your internet, you won't struggle too much because I won't be talking for the next 30 minutes.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Brilliant. I'll ask a quick question, sorry. Is it, when making the control deficiency, is it okay to almost highlight areas where there could be accusations for stealing? And you're on mute, by the way. Sorry.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Sorry, no, my fault. I was talking and I was... Sorry, could you just repeat the question again? Sorry.
So I'm highlighting that within the control deficiency that there's a $400 petty cash flow, and obviously that can lead to a self-interest where employees and managers would effectively steal from the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it okay to highlight the fact that that's almost an accusation? Is that okay to highlight?
Yeah. Yes. I guess. Yes. The technical word would be fraud.
Right. Okay.
But you're right. Yes. Yes. You're right. Yeah. I can't see why saying stealing is. Stealing is. You're right. Stealing is strong. I don't know why stealing is stronger than fraud. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Owen.
No worries. But what you're right in highlighting the consequence. That is the consequence. The misappropriation of assets. That is the consequence that you're highlighting, and you get half a mark for highlighting, not just saying, "Oh, here's the error." No, here's the deficiency. You have to highlight that, and that's what you're doing. That's correct.
Thank you.
Ian?
Yes.
Sorry, you know with question 167?
Yes, that's right.
They're asking for control activities. Now, is that in relation to SOAP maps?
Yes, yes, exactly. So whenever you hear the word control activity, so remember that, like, correct. So the big picture of all control is crime. Most of the questions, now this is what I was going to say. I don't want to say 100%, but most of the time, if not in all questions, when you get a scenario, typically your recommendations, everything you're dealing with is to do with control activities. SOAP maps, what controls are in place, or what are the deficiencies. So all the deficiencies, all your recommendations are all related to SOAP maps. They're all related to control activities. If you think about it, risk management in information systems, monitoring, which kind of falls, because we have monitoring as well in SOAP maps. You see where I'm going? But that monitoring is kind of more departmental, organizational, structural type thing. And then control environment. Control environment is more culture. So the skill with audit is that what you want to do is highlight the control activities first, and always see which of those other things you could chuck in. So always saying things like, maybe if you were giving a training, or if you felt a training within the organization to create a culture that enables better controls, you will get marks for that as well. So you're right. Everything, the starting point will always be control activities, because those are almost like procedures, if you like. And then it grows into the others, and then you just start knowing how to kind of answer them in this kind of, the examiner sees that, okay, the student is extending their answer from control activities.
Ian, have you got you know when it says SOAP maps?
Oh yes, good point. Yes, I think I mentioned I was going to pull that up. Let's pull that up. So yeah, because you see the question starts off asking you for I think that question asks about control activities. I think so, but let me pull out SOAP maps.
I think I've got segregation in that authorization.
Yes, so the segregation is the S from SOAP maps. Authorization is the A from SOAP maps. Physical controls is the P. Something I never, monitoring is the M. Let me just see if I can find.
I remember doing this in AAT, I think, but I've just completely.
Of course, because you do some element of in your synoptic. Yes, in synoptic there's the.
It was definitely in there, but I just can't remember.
Yeah, let me.
Remember it for the exam, and then you know. When you
Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't. I mean, I never. I don't. I don't remember the all of them word for word. I tend to remember them as I tend to just write them out as I'm. Maps on it. Let's see. Here we are. 1 second. See if this works. All right. We're not the only ones that use soap maps in accounting. Other professions use soap maps. 1 second. Let me just get out of here.
I guess you wouldn't have time to talk about every one of these in a question.
No, you won't. You know, because you're reacting to the question.
Okay.
You're only pulling out the deficiency that you see. So, for example, if you see a lack of segregation of duties, that's when you use that. If you see a lack of physical controls, that's when you use that. So, which is why I say, in essence, which is why I never tend to remember all of soap maps, because typically what we notice is the segregation of duties are always coming out: physical controls, authorization, monitoring. Do you see where I'm going? So you almost know that there is a set number of typical control activities that we notice all the time. Yes, here we are. Excuse me 1 second. Right, I'm going to have to go to my folder to dig one out. I thought I could just Google it. Usually I would expect it to come up because it's quite a popular. I'll find. Oh yes, I think I found it. Yep, I found it. Here we are.
There aren't only asking for 4, so I think I've got 4 here already. What you've just said, so that's.
Yeah, that's the main. That's the kind of the those are the big ones. But I will. Let me just see if I can. But yeah, I'll pull it out for you. But you're right. It's once we. Yes. Soap maps. Or let me try OAP spasms. Maybe that's what is coming up. Ah, here we are. In fact, I mean, it's amazing because sometimes I see other things from time to time when I Google like this, but I'm not seeing what we can. Here we are. Characteristics of read. Here we are. So let me share the screen. This is a good one, actually. But there's so many. I mean, because they're acronyms, you see them in so many ways. But let me share this one, and I'll keep sharing, of course, the different ones as we get to the different um, um, chapters. Right, here we are. So this is you see, like I said, OAP spasm is pretty old. This is 2011, but they changed it to soap maps.
Yeah.
Friendlier. So, and I remember it as OAP spasm. That's not the best. And the O was for organizational control. The A, I mean, I'll make a copy of this and send it to you later. Authorization, physical controls. I know they've just written physical here. Physical controls. Say again, sorry.
I remember personnel.
Yes, personnel. You know, personnel. Yes, exactly. The suitable people are employed. And I mean, again, you know, maybe I think maybe that's why I guess for some of us, well, for me anyway, who kind of I think I've always preferred subjects that have some common sense to them, and you have to do some extra work. I appreciate that, but you have a starting base. You would expect, right? So when you're doing an audit question, when you're doing a controls question, I even think in the question you're doing, I think the question you're doing, Natalie, 167. I think you have some payroll staff who aren't actually very good, or who aren't qualified, or who are still training, or something like that. I mean, that's a control risk. That's a control risk, and that control risk sits within control activities, if you like. So this is what I was saying, that the issue of controls are crime, but you will be focusing most of the time on OAP spasm or soap maps. Then you can find, if you can see the other RIME kind of issues around, because monitoring is covered quite a bit within soap maps or OAP. Then you have arithmetic accounting, segregation, rotation, big. You will always see segregation of duties, no questions asked. You will always see it. And management controls. So if you like, management, which is what I think has strong elements with monitoring. Although these acronyms are used right across, they're not just specific to audit. As you can imagine, we see them right across the spectrum in business management, and so sorry, I'm trying to prevent a little person from coming here. Go away. Thank you. Yes, they said hello. You said good morning last week. No, go away. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, I swear. Okay, say hello quickly.
You
hello.
can't see me, I'm afraid, but
Yeah, hello quickly. You two say hello. Okay, good. Thank you. No. There's no. What is going on? Goodness me, their mother's left the house. She hasn't said anything. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. I need to get rid of these people.
Right, I mean, I can get on now. So thank you.
No worries. Don't come on, keep her busy. Keep her busy. Stop it. Keep her busy in the other room. Sorry. Close our stuff. Okay, we'll wait for Hannah to join us. I suspect she kind of went offline because her internet's not very. But once she joins us, we'll go through, and I'll see what your thoughts are.
Ian?
Yes.
So while we're waiting, would you just be able to quickly go through that crime again, what they stand for?
Of course, yes, of course. So no, you're right. In fact, I should go to the. Let me see if I can go straight to the textbook, and then so you can then map how I've arrived at crime from the normal text. Yeah, because it's not laid out as crime. It's not laid out as crime, but actually, oops, a second. Let me just go to here. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then you can literally map it in your notes and always go back to it. Okay, great. So I'll just share my screen, take you there to my. Okay, great. So I am in my audit textbook, and it will be in systems and controls once that loads. So they typically will always start with control environment. So once I get there, you'll see control environment is always the first one, but it's in E. It's environment. So it's control environment, but we just say E as in for E and crime. Where are we? Here we are. So here we are. And this is generally the way we would always address controls when we look at control systems in general. We always look at crime. And again, like I say, it actually doesn't matter what syllabus you're dealing with. You could be in, you'll see that when we get to strategic business management, which we taught for the first time last year in September, the big case study thing, they had this so-called cube, which still used exactly the same acronyms, if you like, especially to do with control systems. So there we have internal controls, and let's look at this, the components of that. Here we are. So you can see, here we are. You see this. This will be page for you. This, if you look in your textbook, Natalie, you should see it. Well, it says 226 on my own page, but it should be very early on in that chapter of systems and controls. Literally point 2.
Oh yes, I think so. It's got control environment.
Exactly. So exactly. So you can see here, this is your crime. This you can see it says components of an internal control system. It doesn't matter what organization we're dealing with. Every organization, this will be the components of the entire. These are all the components. Control activities are only one part of that whole big picture. So those are SOAP maps over there, control activities that you see me clicking on. But we still can. We don't get examined on it so much because this is a big this idea of, because we'll discuss what control environment means. You'll see you can only kind of, which is what I was saying, you can only add it to your list. You have control environment. So this control environment is the E. We use the control environment as E. We use control activities as C. We use risk assessment processes as the R. We use information systems, if you like, so management information systems in effect as the I, and M as monitoring. So really, this is the and control environment in which again your audit improves, because when you're highlighting, when you're not afraid to say that governance is just as an important measure of control as having authorization. That's important, if you like, because an organization having a board, having a CEO, having a separate chairman, having non-executive directors, that's all part of control. And that's having a good control environment in the first place, if you like. And having training and having manuals, that's all part of the control environment. You can see here attitude, awareness. So all these are, I know, soft words that we don't typically use as accountants, but very much part of the control environment.
Okay, thanks, Orion.
No worries, you're welcome. And then you saw me, if you remember last week, I know it's been a while, I talked a lot about risk heat maps, and I was talking about risk registers. And the key point is, however an organization goes about using its internal audit people to go around documenting the risks within the organization. And when we talk about risk, this isn't just to do with the production of financial statements. This is within the organization. Where are the risks? Where are the hazards that could bring down the organization as a whole? All of this, having a good understanding of all of this helps you measure control risk. Is it low, medium, or high? And then you know how to, the extent of work you can carry out. Okay, cool. Right, yes. Hannah is not, let's begin. I think that's good. And hopefully she will join in. Okay, great. So, right. So this first, the very first question asks us again, and I mean, it's interesting. I just like to hear your answers and just kind of prove to you that when I even go to look at the mark scheme, that your answers, I don't think, will be that different from the mark scheme. It's a big syllabus. There are many reasons why it is important for audits to communicate with those charged with governance. There cannot be one answer. Lots of answers for you to choose from. But your thoughts, just throw out a line or two. I've seen Natalie's, Graham, Dudley, James. What were some of the things you thought in your mind? And it doesn't really matter. You're very much right, even if it's not word for word as the mark scheme. But your thoughts as to why you thought it was in any way important that auditors, very open question, to keep in touch with those CEOs, the board, in your mind.
I mean, these smaller questions I actually don't like doing. It's the bigger ones. It's I think I do prefer reading through the bigger ones and picking things out. But with the first one, I put that it's important for the auditor to discuss governance with the relevant individual, as they can gain a greater understanding of the business.
Perfect. And I want to take you to the answer. I think, let me see if I can click on the answer straight away, because you've answered that. I'm trying to open up another. I want to take you to the answer straight away so you can see that what you've done there. Let me see. Is that 217? Let me see if that's, because that's what I'm trying to do here with these questions, kind of show you that, you know, you're answering the question straight. You know, there is you probably couldn't just do what you've just done with tax, is what I'm trying to say. Where you just see a question, you wake up in the morning, and then, you know, without knowing it's 19% or 25%, and then you have to do this. With audit, you can almost do that. You can almost think, yeah, I mean, of course, that kind of makes sense. And you can, as long as you're neat and sharp about your answer. Sorry, you should be able to, which is why I want to do it this way, so you actually see the answer, so you're confident with your writing, and then you're, you know, you're having a good stab at it. Okay, great. Here we are, 217. And I have a sense that... Say again?
I just waffle on. I don't necessarily write what's, you know, obviously there's a lot of writing in a short amount of time. not everything that I write is always necessary, and I'm worried about losing time on it. But
no worries. I mean, look at this. Look at the big word. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. You can see here. Sorry. It's the heat. It's the heat. It's too warm. This is the time people start packing up and heading somewhere, anywhere. They just start heading to places. But okay. Anyway, they just want to go out. I'm gonna do whatever. But you can see here, big. Look, big right there. Understanding. However you discuss, however you take this word understanding and express it. There are loads of. You could go everywhere with that. But the big thing I thought, and I think I mentioned it in my feedback to Natalie as well, was understanding. You want to understand, you want to gain you want to build a relationship so that later on, when you have problems, however you write this, like you're saying, Dudley, it doesn't really matter how you say it. The key point is, I want to have some kind of understanding of the organization. I want to build a relationship. They talk about it, develop a constructive relationship. Doesn't really matter how you put it. The key point is that, I want something here. So what I usually say to students is that, I mean, exams are a game. An examiner has this. This is what the examiner has in front of them when your paper arrives. They know that your work won't look like this, but the more your work looks like this. So for example, like you say, I mean, after all, this is the advantage of having English as your first language. You're comfortable with using words like, those charged with governance, expressions like that. This relationship is developed while maintaining just kind of building that track in your mind or building a story of why it's important, so that if anything happens later on, right? And I think that was you're building relationships. However you say it, two-way communication doesn't really matter. However you say it, that's the key. That's the key point. Good. Okay. Good. So good. Let's go to the next point. Yeah, and I think and then I think they ask identify two examples of matters which you may want to communicate. Just two things. So it doesn't really matter what you write. They're just two examples. James, your thoughts? Anything that you felt okay? And again, like I say, it doesn't matter what you say. This is asking for two examples that you may want to talk about to the CEOs or to the board in your what did you think of anything?
We're still on the first question.
Yes, we're still on the first question, part 2.
Oh, part 2. I answered part 1 and then went straight to the next one.
Okay.
The last question, I didn't do 2.
No problem. Yeah. Okay. Graham, did you have a look at that, or any thoughts, or?
Actually, just a B.
Okay, sorry, no worries. All of you done B. So some of the things that you can talk about, matters that you can communicate. You might have issues. There might be issues to do with fraud. Remember that fraud is the responsibility of those charged with management. There might be, I think the big word here is any significant matters, if you like, any issues with the financial director. If you're not getting the information you need directly or as quickly as you want, if you like, access to information, if you feel that the management aren't aware of their responsibilities, or you're basically having hindrances or problems with your data. But the truth is, like you say, I probably will. I mean, I'm in a way, I kind of like your thinking there. The truth is, the marks lie in part B, so probably hit that first and just come back here and see if you can pull out 2.5 marks at least out of 4. Okay, great stuff. So let's hit part B. So let's jump straight into the story. I'm not going to read the whole thing again because you guys have picked up on what's going on here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each paragraph and pick out a risk and then ask you if you found that risk, as opposed to and then getting your thoughts. So and then, or you can stop me and think if you feel there was an earlier risk. So in paragraph 1, you're given the story behind this business. It's really the story about what's going on. There's no risk per se in here. You're just kind of aware that these people are going to be dealing in cash. So in your mind, you're thinking, okay, there's no, because the question is asking about, control deficiency. We don't know about the controls just yet. So you're thinking, okay, I know what's going on. Right now, here, they tell you that they have a float of £400, employees are required to do this and whatever, and at any time this should be equal, as you would expect. But it says it has been noted by the IA that this has not been the case. I mean, without a doubt, I'm sure you all picked out all of that as control deficiency 1. Yes?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is why I think control questions work. I mean, they just work. You're going to get it. You'll pick it up. Some are tricky, I accept. So you pick that out as control deficiency 1. And kind of what Dudley was saying, there's half a mark for kind of just picking this out, for writing this out. But you kind of need half a mark for stating what the consequence is of that risk. You're not going to get full 1 mark for that. You need to kind of state, well, what is the consequence of, if you like, in effect, not chasing up, reconciling, whatever it is, the petty cash to, if you like, and petty cash, remaining petty cash and notes or vouchers, if you like, to the float, so to speak. Right. Okay, great. So I guess the question then, before we go to the answers, which is what I want to see in your minds, what recommendations, and just to show you again, this is quite an open area as well. Whatever you write probably is correct. What recommendations could we put in place as a control to ensure that we don't have this case up? So you can see the thinking. Again, I think controls are almost like a natural field, what you would expect if you were running this organization. Let's go to James. Your thoughts, James. What recommendations would you put in place? Whatever you write, I'm sure works.
The first one I picked was about the tills. They will have 1 login.
Okay, right. That's fine. So I'll come to you for that one. Let's go to Dudley. Dudley, what were your thoughts on this one? What recommendations did you think? I would put this control in place to prevent. Remember, controls are there to. Your thoughts.
Sorry, is this the one about the $400 float?
Yes.
Yeah. So I put along the lines of the $400 across the 6 groups. Obviously, the 6 venues is quite a substantial amount. There should be. Maybe we want to bring this down. If it's petty cash, it probably wants to be reduced to a more manageable level.
Okay. Good. So yeah, right. And Graham, good. Yes, you're right. That's one. That's definitely one. I think £400 is a bit much, personally, as well. I thought that as well. I mean, I don't know if I saw it in the answers, but that would work as well. But you see, there's the problem, like you say, is the fact that because it's not, no one's picked up on the fact, or no one's chasing up on the fact that these two things are not equal. It just seems to be like, okay, it's not equal, and no one is kind of doing a kind of reconciliation, if you like, of sorts, and chasing up on that. Graham, before I show you the answers, so you can sort of see how they frame it, and then.
I'll just put that they should have someone in charge of petty cash to sort of keep on top of the receipts and.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Natalie, I missed you there.
Having like a cash book log or book recording everything.
Yeah, it really is as simple. It really is just saying, really, if you like. So look at what they're saying. But again, yours doesn't have to be as fancy as this. But it literally has to be, how do we stop this kind of difference in happening? Because you see, there's a number of things here. Again, like I said, because you're all good people, and none of you had the pleasure of working in McDonald's as I did. I'm not judging. I thought McDonald's was a rite of passage for every 16-year-old. I've totally missed it. But this was very normal. This scenario reminded me so much of working in McDonald's. Very, very normal scenario of working with cash tails and tilling up and counting up the cash and banking it. Because especially then there weren't that many people using cards in that time. So you have here all you need is one of these answers. So you need some kind of log, if you allow, so you can actually chase up, because I know naturally you're almost not seeing you almost don't see the problems. You're thinking, well, okay, there's a difference, but how do I even know? I mean, I'm sure you guys have you seen some petty? I mean, oh my goodness, have you seen some petty cash books with like baskets where you see vouchers everywhere, and then you don't know who used or who bought milk, and you just see, oh, it's a mess. So you really do need a kind of good, almost like a cash book. I mean, a petty cash book, if you like, a log to write date, amount taken out, change, if you like, and that sort of thing. That way, we can then chase up regularly with a kind of reconciliation, if you like, to know what's going on. Even if the person doesn't bring a voucher back, then we can chase up and say, where's the voucher? Oh, sorry, it's on my desk. Where's the change? Oh, sorry, it's on my desk. That sort of thing. The other one I think is also very good, if I come to the middle one, is this one about the need for the reconciliation. Reconciliation is your next favorite word after segregation. Well, to be fair, segregation, authorization, reconciliation are your big control recommendations that you're always trying to think of. I say segregation because it's very, and then this word, oh, another favorite word, sorry, sequential numbering. Sequential numbering. This way, we ensure completeness. We will never lose anything, but don't worry, you'll start using these words regularly. The key point is that we want to, on a weekly basis, reconcile the petty cash and follow it up with a relevant employee. So to a certain extent, or kind of like what you said, kind of Graham, however you put it, you said, okay, have someone in charge to make sure you're chasing up. Doesn't really matter. Key point is we're following up to make sure, and you get the full marks. You know, and that's what we're just trying to give the examiner, just what's enough to just get, you know, like the 60 something, you know, because you know it, but it's just giving him the language he needs. On the second one, the middle one, it says the relevant employee should return, the log should be updated. I mean, you kind of still need, I think, some way of, you know, then again, it's just because it's time. This is the problem with audit. You could talk forever. Now, here's the thing. You could, I don't think it's a problem after writing maybe one or two of these, kind of coming back to what I was saying to Natalie, to say that I believe the only reason, and you probably tell me if I'm wrong, I believe the only reason this kind of thing is even happening is because within the organization, there is a culture where you can take petty cash and not deal with it quickly. And that's a cultural problem because I've seen it. Typically, some people have to go through quite a few steps to get any money for petty cash. You will have someone chase it up. People are aware of how it's done. And so they're trained to record the information straight away, to return the voucher, to put the voucher in, and to say this is what I bought, and to deal with it quickly. So from a control environment, you can almost write there so these are all control activities. So from a control environment point of view, you can almost argue that you want to train to create a culture that people. So you can almost use culture for everything, and you will get the marks. You will get the marks. Okay, great stuff. So, thank you. So, James, you were telling me that you had gone for the cash tails.
Yeah, that was the first thing I picked up.
No worries.
Because they all logged in on the same thing, and the password was only changed every 2 weeks. I said They should have their own login. Perfect.
Perfect. So let's just go to the answer and see it again. So again, like I said, nothing crazy. So, so James, what I wanted to highlight was, did you mention the consequence of them having the same logs?
Yeah. I just said that it was because they wouldn't be able to identify the discrepancies.
Perfect. Yes, I hope you, sorry, forgive me. I'm always asking this, but just want to make sure you can still see my screen. Yes. Can you see me writing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So exactly. So you cannot get the full marks. I mean, I keep highlighting this. This is the thing with audit. You cannot get the full marks if you don't highlight, pick out what the problem is and highlight what the consequence is. You must highlight what the consequence is. And then solving the problem, however way you go, give every employee their own logins, change the logins you feel free to, you go with whatever you will get the answer. And expand on that. But the big point here was each employee should be provided with a unique login. But not just that. I mean, again, because of my experience of working in McDonald's, I think the other problem here was that, did you notice that this was right across all the tills? Did anyone pick up on the fact that I know it's difficult, but did anyone pick up? But it's not difficult. They're just controls, and I've seen it done. Did anyone pick up on the fact that it was important to give a particular person a till? Have you noticed in some organizations you have people jumping on several tills? Now, yes, they're logging in with their own different logins, but still you have a problem at the end of the day if you have any discrepancies or any exceptions. Because if you have 3 people who have logged on a till and someone's made a mistake, all you have is, I have 3 people. I still need to figure out where this mistake was made, when it was made, who made it. But if you have everyone allocated their own till, and that's all they can log on to, wow, we're done. We know exactly who we know who had access, and we can investigate.
I've done the opposite. I've done that. I suppose probably not even a viable option, but to reconcile each employee's code at the end of the day instead of each employee's till. So then work out whether or not there's any discrepancies, but I suppose it's not really a viable option and can't really be implemented because there's so much cash going in and out and transactions. So
yeah, I mean, what you're saying is quite a real issue, because like what I was saying, it's tough because when I worked in McDonald's and you worked on the till, we jumped tills a lot. And although, to be fair, I mean, because I remember tilling up, I mean, I don't know if anyone's had to do any till recs. Oh my God, it's a nightmare because, I mean, I'm going to ask, has anyone here had to stay late at work because your till didn't balance your money in the till didn't balance to the cash tills? Oh my God, I've done that. You know, you have to start explaining why. You were allowed a difference of, we used to be allowed a difference of £2.50, you know, but there are many issues. So you do typically want to kind of hone in and make sure that each till. But again, like I said, Dudley, it's just what it is. It's the experience of these environments that make you kind of pick up on the potential fraud here. I mean, again, like I say, because you haven't experienced these type of things. I mean, I never did it, but because to be fair, I probably would have and not felt anything about it. At 16, 17, when your friends come into the restaurant, they might only have £1. So you would pick up. I'm only telling you what happened. I didn't really do this. I don't remember doing it. You pick up a full meal, press 99p whirl ice cream thing, and give them the ice cream. Sorry, the quarter pounder with cheese, and they'd give you £1 as though they bought an ice cream. There's so much kind of potential fraud that happens at the till that people don't think about that can happen. So it's important to although things are different, things are so electronic now, so it's actually quite rare that it's quite rare now, because now what typically then used to happen was, to a certain extent, you almost had to be good at maths because you almost had to kind of count your change and verify it. Or sometimes someone gives people the wrong change and they pick up £3.50, says it tells you clearly that £2.50, but you give the person £3.50, that kind of thing. So you do have discrepancies and exceptions, but at least we can identify where those errors are. Okay, great. Let's look at the next one. I'll read the next paragraph and pick out the next risk. So here, here we are. Then it says at the end of, it says at the end of, at each venue, at the end of the day, the tills are closed down by the restaurant manager. This is, I think, maybe this is kind of going back to what Dolly was saying. Who counts? This is the thing. You might not have picked it up because you'd have been quite, you're not naturally looking for fraud. But see what's going on. See the problem here. He counts the total cash in all 5 tills and the sum of the credit card vouchers, and the totals are reconciled with the aggregate, which is total, aggregate daily readings of the sales taken from the till. Did you pick up that being a risk or being a deficiency?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Dudley, were you happy with that one? Is it being a?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. James?
Yeah, I got that one.
Brilliant, great stuff. Good. So I won't hold you I won't hold you guys for too long on that, but so you can see the problem. But just taking you to the answer. I mean, the answer is he should do it individually. So however you write that, do it individually. I won't stress you too much on that. Let's go to the next one very quickly. Then it says here, it says any discrepancies are noted on the daily sales sheet. These record the cash counted. These sheets are scanned. I mean, you might, let's see if you pick up and emailed to the cashier at the end of each week. Did you pick up again that there's a deficiency here? Yes, Graham, your thoughts on the deficiency for you? What were the problems here? You might describe it slightly differently, but there is a problem here. There's a potential problem.
Well, the daily sheets. So what?
Perfect. Number one, good. They're daily sheets. They wait until the end of the week. Yes, we'll talk about the consequences later. Good.
And so, I guess if they save them up, then there's a chance they could get lost or something.
Perfect. Exactly. The fact is that things can get lost. That's the thing. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, those are the big points. The fact here, but there's also the question of completeness, like what you said. There's many reasons, but these are the big ones here. The fact here is that you have, because Monday to Sunday, I don't know what their week is. I don't know what's crossing the year end. I don't know what's crossing the month end. I don't know if Wednesday is month end. The key point is if you're waiting to send these daily sheets till the end of the week, you will not have recorded. The cashier I was going to say in London, in the head office, won't have the sheets for up to the year end to put in, and so the accounts won't be showing debit, bank, credit, revenue. So revenue would be incomplete. That would be the first thing from a completeness point of view. But from a just like you say, within the organization, likely to get lost. That's the other thing. And two, even this business of things being scanned and emailed. I mean, I haven't even checked the answers. That's the thing. We could spend all day just looking at the answers, but it could get lost in the scanning process. The scanning might not come through appropriately. Might get lost in the email. Really, some issues there. If you wait to do all of them at the end of the week.
Highlight to recall the much like you said about the deficiencies, the discrepancies that they don't give you a value. So
yes,
for me,
perfect.
When I used to work at shop, we used to do it for £1, if that, and more often than not, we wouldn't be allowed to go on until that £1 was sorted out.
Yes, exactly. There is no investigation on those discrepancies, and we don't even know. So let me just go to the answers very quickly. Sorry, like I say, there's so much you could pull out here that so you will never. My point is that you will never be short of. Sorry, 1 second. Just come out of here. You will never be short of answers for. Oops, sorry. Let me come out of that. I don't know why that. Oops, sorry. I don't want this. Wait a second. You will never be short of answers for. Oops, sorry. I'm just trying to get out of here. Okay. Yes, you will never be short of answers for these things. So here we are. Yes, here we are. The reconciliation in total, exceptions will arise. Yes, daily sheets are scanned and emailed, misplaced, incomplete sales. But you talked about that. They talk about that within. I'd have written it separately and just talked about the discrepancies. But that would be a standalone. That would work as a standalone problem as well. Okay, great stuff. So just showing you the answers for the next one. I'm sure. Did you pick up on the fact that although I'm going to be honest with you, in reality, restaurant managers tend to do a lot of this alone as well. Because the truth is, I mean, unless They shouldn't be, but restaurant managers kind of tend to do a lot of this work alone. That's the truth. But you have to think that you have to sort of realize that they shouldn't. Did you pick up on the fact that the restaurant manager was doing a lot?
I picked up that he was the only one who was counting. Wasn't he the only one counting the cash?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a general rule, definitely, it's a general rule that you shouldn't have, because you see the problem we have here, the problem with exception reports, right, is that when you have a cash business, by default, an inherent risk in a cash business is an inherent risk in that cash goes missing. Now, there's no foolproof for that unless you scrap cash and only play with cards. Okay, so if you're not going to do that, you will have the potential for cash missing. Not in a bad or good way. Someone could come in, make a mistake. It's going to happen. Now, if you don't have two people watching cash all the time in any capacities, then you can't blame. Then all you're doing is allowing someone to take advantage of the natural hazard or the natural risk. So the manager can just say from time to time, I mean, I've definitely seen it done before. I mean, I'm just going to be honest and tell you, definitely, I remember sometimes we'd be working late, and even at even whilst it was McDonald's, and we'd work till like 12:30 in the morning, and then suddenly the manager would say something like, "Oh, listen, guys, thanks for staying back to clean up," and literally he won't even like properly put it through. I mean, I remember almost quite vivid. He'll just take out like whatever, £8 from the till to pay the taxi if you like to take us home, and technically almost treated like an exception if you like £8 just didn't come in. So not like, oh, putting it through petty cash or anything. No, just almost treating it like an exception. So it's quite normal, this behavior. So you could almost end up with an understatement of cash. Right, so very good. So don't be afraid to use the word fraud. There is a fraud risk that the manager could just remove some of the cash and just say there was an exception. Very normal, actually. Very normal. So that's the problem. So typically we want two people, however real that is. It's about having good controls in place, but if you like. But please, really, these recommendations, you want to be able to state very clearly what you think should be done to prevent, if you like. And you can see they're so literal. One should count the cash and the other should record it. So you want to be literal with these things. Okay, right. Let's quickly tie this up. I'm sure you guys, did you pick up on the fact that cash was stored in a safe and that the key? Yes, James, were you happy with that one?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, the fact here was that was just there for the taking, and did you pick up? You might not have it, but probably you did. Again, like highlight this question of the cashier. Did you pick up on the cashier, Dudley, about the cashier being kind of doing a lot of things as well?
Yeah, I picked up on that.
Perfect. Segregation of duty. You can see here what you want. You can see where they're using that language, stating very clearly this is where the mark is. You'll probably see like one mark over here. There is a lack of segregation of duties, and the errors will not be identified on a timely basis, if you like. And even the potential for fraud, possibly. Why not? And how do we deal with it? Split the roles between, again, ideally. So I always remind students, think of it like this. If you can't split the roles for whatever reason, well, then you can't have the same, you should have a completely different person doing the reconciliations of whatever it is. It could be purchases, a purchase reconciliation, purchase ledger control reconciliation to the purchase ledger. Have a completely different person doing reconciliations if they don't have enough people. Payroll reconciliations, because that's the only way we really know in the end if there's a difference, if you like, or if there are things outstanding, by having someone completely different do the reconciliation. But ideally, that's what you want. Now, they were the next one was an interesting one, but you might hopefully have split out the 2 points. Cash seemed to be okay, but did you pick up on the fact that he wasn't really reconciling the credit card transactions? Let's go to Graham. Were you happy with the lack of reconciliation of credit card vouchers to the monthly statements?
I didn't actually pick up on that one.
Yeah, if you look at it, the reason I say is because it's all mixed up. It's couched within it. So look at this question. It says here, you see here, look at this. So because it all looks as though everything's okay, but it's not. It says at head office, this is the cashier, on receipt of the daily sales sheet and security company, he agrees the cash transferred by the security. So the cash that's been banked. So basically, the cash that's been banked shows up, and the daily sheets that have been scanned through, no problem. We check that. That's fine. Then what he does is the cashier updates the cash book with the cash bank and details of the credit card vouchers from the daily sales sheets. On a monthly basis, the credit card company, right? So people are paid by credit card, of course. So the credit card company will send a statement, basically like a bank statement, and that's it. And it says it's just filed by the cashier. So something to notice what they do in audit exams very well is just to sort of, just because they say it's, oh yeah, he's updated it or he's filed it, doesn't mean he still has to reconcile the credit card statements or the bank credit card statements to the cash vouchers to see if there's any discrepancy as well. So that's another point there. And you probably all picked up on the fact that 2 months is not a good space of time to be reconciling. Well, it's there for you to see. I doubt in reality anyone would do it like this. But the key point here is, what else did you think was interesting here? It says that the reconciliations are reviewed by the financial controller who evidences her review by a signature. It looks okay. This looks okay. But what would you just want to understand about this review? What question would you want to ask?
There are two, to me, it'd be two signatures maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah. We would like you to reperform it. It's just a reconciliation, just to actually add through, if you like. You see, because the problem with controls is people become too trusting. You see what I mean? Someone can just, to actually check through, because let's be honest, the reconciliation is unpaid. You would just ask, did you actually review Review is an open word. What I'm saying is, let's not just question the word again. Just apply the thresholds. You will get the mark for it. Because review, someone can say, if I said, oh yes, I've reviewed it, what does that even mean? So you can say, what I've actually done is I've inspected the unpresented checks, inspected the outstanding lodgements, reperformed the rec myself. You're the financial controller. It can't take you that long. What are you doing all day? Sorry. I don't mean that in a bad way. But that's the whole point of financial controllers. They're supposed to spend all day just looking at recs. People have done the main work. They're just looking at the recs and then do the final authorization and then sign. But I won't say anything in case, because some of you will become financial controllers, and I don't want anyone to hate me like, oh yeah, because we all need each other. So there you go. So there we are. So there we have that, and then all purchases are yes. And what do you think of this very last bit? All purchases of food and beverages are paid by bank transfer. At the relevant payment date, the finance director is given the total amounts of the payment lists which he authorizes. Any views there? James, your thoughts?
No, I didn't pick up on this one.
Yeah. So let me take you to the answer. Like kind of going back to what we expect our finance controllers to be doing. He's just given the list. He's just told pay X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Because he says he's given the list, we naturally trust that he reviews it, or he's looked at it to check. So kind of, oops, sorry. Let me just come here and just show you here. He says that he only views the totals of the payments to be made rather than the amount we pay to each supplier. So please, financial controller or finance director, look at each document with the supporting documentation. Remember last time I highlighted that we should see the goods received note, purchase invoice. So let me even go the other way. Let me go one step. What you want to be saying is, I want to see the purchase requisition, who ordered this thing, all stamped together, the purchase order, purchase requisition, purchase order, goods received note, purchase invoice, then I'll sign off, if you like, for this thing to be paid. And also, when are we paying this thing? Are we paying it in a good window? I hope we're not paying it too early, because you're in charge of cash flow. As soon as you authorize it, money's leaving the bank. So if you like, what you can have is you basically want him looking, making sure that sums are not being paid to fictitious suppliers. The good thing about audit is you'll see this type of question again. Who knows, you might even see this in your exam. But the key point is we've just finished looking at one system, and the systems roll over all the time. So look at the whole thing, and then before authorizing. Right, good. So when I say any questions, any sort of major issues, or again, like I say, you will see these over and over again, and hopefully, in case you've been sort of not wary or of these type of questions, or thinking, I don't know, hopefully you can see that it's not crazy. It's not a bad these aren't bad topic questions. So by the time we cover audit evidence, internal audit and audit procedures, the questions you might get a 30. Well, that would be great. It's not a bad question. You could get a 25 marker, 30 marker type question where 20 marks might be on controls, and 10 marks or 5 marks might be on actual test of detail, looking at actual evidence, which is question 165 and that sort of thing. Okay, well done. Cool, great stuff. Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll give you, if you don't mind, I'll give you 10 minutes. Yeah, I'll give you 10 minutes because I want us to do another question. I want us to do question 167 before we tie up. So grab a coffee for 10 minutes, and then we'll read 167 and then do that question. James, that might be for you. Let me just check a second. For you, James, that will be 220.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. So, see you in 10. All right, so let's do another question. The reason I have asked us to not do the next two questions is that, I mean, I could, but they have other elements that, not even big elements, where you need to do some substantive testing, some test of detail. But it'd be good to teach the theory first. But you can still have a go and actually come up with some good tests for proving or trying to be sure that, if you like, whatever it was, payroll, I think, figure it out. So I still think you can work it. So please, if you can, for homework, do 165 and 166. We're going to go to 167, technically 220 for James. So that question is, yes, 220. And here again, this question here is a knowledge question, kind of from OAP Spasm, and I will send it you. I mean, you have it, but I just created there's a sheet here that I will send to you as well. So it's just coming out with what we're talking about, segregation of duty. So you can skip that. You don't have to spend too much time on it, but you can please go to, where was I? Yeah, you can go to yes, if you can do that question, and that's how many marks? Yeah, that's 16. So again, something similar. We'll sort of again pull out the main tasks, pick out the deficiencies again, and say about I'll give you 30, just under 30 minutes, which is a bit of a push, but it's not that bad. So say 11, say 11:50 type thing, and then we'll address, and then we'll yes, that's right. Well, I'll give you 11:50. Yeah, and then we'll talk about it. Good, great stuff. Yeah, in fact, just B. Yeah, just B. I don't know if yeah, not C. I don't think there was C in the. I don't know if there's a C in the actual question. Let me check my textbook.
No, there's nothing. There's no C.
Yeah, there's no C. Yeah, so this is a new. Yeah, this is interesting. There's no C. So just B. So 16 marks. So that's actually better. So yeah, 11:50. Yeah, that's about fair. And then we'll do it. So just B. Thank you. And then we'll talk. Okay. Right. So let's begin. I'm sure you're probably you're writing away or probably picking out many of these risks now, and then you get used to how it works as you get used to these risks. Where's my? Oh, here we are. You start getting used to the risks, and hopefully you've picked out. I have a bit of pressure there for 16 in terms of writing it out as clearly as possible, but I think it's just picking out the main, the big risks. So let's plow through this. So this is the picture. You have this company. Let me just make sure that you can see. Here we are. Right, yes. Right, so we have this equestrian company. They manufacture smartphones, tablets, spread across 5 sites, and their goods are stored in 9 warehouses located across the country. And you are reviewing, it's a very typical intro, reviewing the following notes provided in relation to the company's internal controls. Paragraph 1 is big. There's almost, I mean, there's a lot there. So I guess for us, it's about how can I pull out as much out of that, because there's at least, well, let's see, I would say there's at least two, if not 3 points that you could pull out of there comfortably. So they have a small IA department. During the year, IA started a program of physically verifying, comparing the results to the non-current, as this reconciliation hadn't happened for a while. To date, only 15% confirmed, as IA has experienced significant staff shortages. So yeah, great, because finally Natalie can say a few things, because you had already marked your work from the previous. Your thoughts, what did you pick up as a, because I think it's asking for control deficiencies, what would you argue? I think, yes, that's just 8 deficiencies in their internal controls. I mean, you're literally highlighting what you see and what the consequence was. What was the first one that you might have picked out of this, from this paragraph?
Okay, I've got about the verifying the assets, about the 15%, and I basically said that if this isn't reviewed on a regular basis, there's basically a risk of the assets being, I'm trying to think of my English at the moment.
No.
Missing or.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. You see, because controls are internal to the organization. You see, it's not so much about what work you're going to do yet. No, it's like you say. I mean, think of it like, I mean, again, just you're right. Think about the practical issues here. Imagine these are all because it says this non-current asset register, right? So these are assets they use within the organization. Let's just assume, it's just a shame because they actually make smartphones and tablets. But let's just say that you actually had non-current asset as in tablets within the organization. And I know that this organization doesn't even keep or doesn't regularly review their. There's some other issues we'll talk about, but let's just even talk about the assertion of existence. If I only check, if I have laptops in all the different floors of the offices in the organization, and people work there, and people, how do I know if those laptops aren't glued to the table? How do I know? Like, you're right. How do I know that some aren't missing? Just from an existence point of view. So how do I know some of these assets have not been misappropriated? How do I know some of these assets? I mean, you need to start thinking like an investigator. Think evil of people. Sorry. Think, how do I know they haven't stolen some of these assets to sell? We don't know. You can't trust people. I mean, photocopiers. Printers. Photocopier is a bit big to steal. But how do we know? That's one. Let's stick with non-current assets. So thank you, Ali. Let's just stick with we'll come to the staff shortages in a second. What else would you argue is a problem here, apart from existence, that we see with non-current asset registers or with any fixed asset register generally? Graham or Dudley or James, in terms of what else would we be not, what else would they not have a control of or over apart from existence, you think, in terms of depreciation, valuation? They might be having some. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, so I didn't get the depreciation or the valuation. I just put what they need to.
That's fine. That's okay. Yeah, perfect. Exactly. So that's why, I mean, you can almost extract a few more issues there. So the key point here is it just means that what is the control over the final accounts or over the notes, if you like, regarding valuation? You know, fixed asset register is a big, I mean, I think the reason I don't think they test it often, because once students grasp the non-current asset register, everything's going on there. There's additions, there's disposals, there's depreciation, there's a recalculation of depreciation, there's existence of the assets themselves. So, and then there's, if you like, write-offs, and then there's establishing the policy of depreciation. So if you're only, again, if you know, if you can only confirm 15%, and you and I know 15% is nothing, that means that, and what 15% of those assets? But I'm only speaking, I can only say this because, of course, from experience, 15% of your smaller assets, or your smaller value assets. What if you big value assets? Potential for theft, fraud, all happening right there. So yes, that's the first thing. So I mean, we'll look at the controls. So that's the first one. The next one, James, did you pick up, or were you happy? Did you consider this idea of the IA having significant staff shortages?
Yeah, so I said if they sorry, I've just lost my answers.
It's okay.
Yeah, so if they're not operating effectively,
yes,
because of the staff shortages, then it reduces the whole effectiveness of monitoring it.
Perfect. Which is what we were talking. I think Natalie talked about personnel. Personnel from an internal audit point of view. You can have personnel working within the organization who are not qualified, and so your natural recommendation is train them, if you like, and equip them with the right knowledge. So two risks there, and to look at. Let's look at the answers very quickly so we can see what's going on there. Okay. Bang, bang, bang. Sorry, I'll just go to that quickly so you can see it. Sorry, almost there. Yeah. So we have here. So we're talking about here. Yeah, physical. Not the 15% due to staff shortages. If the are not verified, misappropriation and misplaced, and the assets aren't at the correct location. So that's the big one that they pull out of. I just went on to extend what you could pull out, what else you could pull out there, in terms of, I mean, again, in terms of valuation and in terms of their financial statements, so you could extend that there. Then we talked again about the James just gave us a breakdown of the second one, of the second issue here, the fact that they're experiencing significant staff shortages. How do you know these controls are testing effectively if you have people who don't have the right experience? And I think James literally mentioned, he talked about the effectiveness of the monitoring control. So this is what I was saying. When we look at crime, monitoring, typically, if you look in the textbook under monitoring, you have internal audit department. So when we come to do next week the chapter on internal audit, so hopefully you can start to see how this, hopefully this is all piecing together, you know, when we come to do internal audit. Their role is in the monitoring capacity. I guess the other thing, the big thing that comes under internal audit is the question of being able to pick up on fraud. So their role is to go out there and to kind of basically ensure that the systems are working and are effective. And if they're not experienced enough, well, then we have a problem. So again, in terms of, you can be as creative as you want as to how do we improve this. It says recruit people who are good at it, train them, second people from finance, basically get experienced people to come in. Okay, great. Let's look at the next one. All right. But really, again, I'm sure you're happy with a lot of what I'm doing here. So again, I'm sure you picked up, it says here they've conducted an extensive reorg of the manufacturing process due to the significant number of changes, blah, blah, blah. HR has been very busy, and to ease their workload during the period, the payroll department has assisted in setting up new employees who have joined the company. Dudley, your thoughts? What do you think there is? I might have highlighted gently. I know we haven't focused on pay. Oh, of course, Dudley. Yes, this is your field. Yes. Your thoughts on where you think this might be an issue? No pressure. No pressure.
So I'll put that obviously the deficiency is that the payroll managers have the ability to add in employees that may not exist.
Exactly.
This can lead to fraud as other employees can pick up their pay slips. But also put that, as a recommendation, we need to get substantial evidence, whether that be an NI number, meet the person, photographic evidence, and then checks of the employees that are added onto the payroll system.
Perfect. Yeah. That's important. That's important. And in this scenario, because it says here that because they've been very busy, naturally, I'm sure you will agree that HR is a very, I mean, I've always noticed, though, correct me if I'm wrong, that they always tend to sit around they're always in the same area in terms of when you go into an office, HR pretty close to payroll. Well, I've noticed, and sometimes, there's a they talk, because that does make sense. But these are very separate departments, and so they should be very, very, if you like, not just segregation of duty, they are completely different departments, and they should be. So in effect, although I accept that you can have a small business where you have HR kind of putting people on, new joiners, taking off leavers, and facilitating, and then you should have maybe a separate payroll manager, like you say. But we have two very separate divisions here. So you should have very, very good segregation of duties. So you shouldn't have this happening naturally. So really, we want to avoid any kind of relationship between HR and payroll. In effect, like you say, HR shouldn't know the people coming in. They shouldn't have access to their core details. They should just technically see numbers in a perfect world and just put those details through. I mean, I don't know, to be fair, it's been a while, but I want to go as far as saying that I remember definitely when, and you can tell me this actually, ironically, Dudley, this is interesting. When an organization is processing payroll for its staff, is it possible that the payroll manager, whoever's processing the payroll, doesn't see the names, that all they just see are the person's national insurance number, something different to the names? Is it possible, or must they see the names to process payroll?
Well, the management do our payroll, which obviously they see our names. My understanding is that the payroll managers who do the outsourced payroll for our clients, they will still see the employees' names regardless.
Right.
So yeah, if I do this, I see employees' names.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So it's really trying to separate, and that's how they'll see the names, but you know, in terms of their contracts and their personal details, that HR kind of take and implement. HR are the ones in effect who put those details on the standing data system, HR, and then payroll process payroll, so to speak. So the argument is we don't want the same people, like you say, who are able to put standing data on, so they could potentially put on fictitious employees and also put in information then through, if you like, bank details, because all of that will go to HR, who do that, and then payroll just process the information. Right, cool, good. So that was the other big point. That was the other big point there. And then let's do the next big point there, so we can look at both the answers. Graham, your thoughts on this very internet-driven HR director?
Well, the fact that he, on his own, has just given the okay to just give everyone a pay rise is a bit ridiculous.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
He definitely shouldn't be emailing it either. It should be in writing, and it should be agreed by like the whole board. So.
Perfect. Problems everywhere.
Yes, mess.
Problems everywhere. But the biggest one, I think, was the HR director. I don't remember when last. I don't know when last the HR director had that kind of power. I'm a bit confused. I used to think it was the board, or that came up that agreed that. But that's a problem, first of all. So there are actually deeper control issues here than just a mechanical payroll question of just processing. No. The fact that the HR director thought he had the power, she had the power to increase wages. And like you say, the control recommendation there is don't do it, done by the board. If you like, that power should not be given, full stop, to that character. And then he notifies payroll by emailing the payroll supervisor. So like, you're right again, that's not how you communicate that kind of data. Any other thoughts on that? We'll look at the answers in a second, but let's see what you thought. But again, like I say, the good thing now is that once let me stay. So let's look at that. It says here, HR have been very busy, set up new joiners. So lack of segregation of duty, as employees are now able to set up new joiners in the payroll system and process their pay. So we have a risk here. There, HR should review the workload, and this role should revert back to HR to undertake. And then we should review all new joiners. So that's really the risk here, isn't it, of people being put on a standing data of the organization. Then we look at this next. So 2 points here, like you said, wage rate increased by the HR director. This should not be made perfect, you said, by the board and not just the HR director. Formally agreed. And hopefully, I'm sure you're picking up on this. Those are the big points. Then addition via email, several issues. You can have changes. And the payroll supervisor is able to make changes to payroll without authorization. This increases the risk of fraud. It's an email. Even I slightly forgot there that they could manipulate the figures on the other side when the email actually gets through. So you have, like you say, a written notification. And typically, again, like you say, standing data like that would need someone, not a payroll supervisor. That's the other thing. Sorry, I'm sure I'm just picking up now. The payroll supervisor, it should be the payroll director or someone quite senior who enables the authorization, because you're changing standing data, aren't you, for it to run through. All right, great stuff. We're almost there. Let's see. Let's look at the next one. Okay, great stuff. So it says here that you have this receivable ledger running in parallel with the old system. New customers obtained by the sales team are required a full credit check. On the basis, a credit limit is proposed by sales staff and approved by the sales director, and these credit limits remain static in the sales system. Natalie, your thoughts on this paragraph?
So the credit limits might be a problem if they remain static in
That's
sales
true.
systems. Maybe they're just not set at the right, limit, which, yeah, maybe that if they're letting accounts go quite overdue, maybe they just need to be checked more regular to make sure the debts are not going to be increasing. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is the bad debts, they're going to be increased.
Good point. Good point. I think there's something that I think you've just, I mean, you, again, like I say, it's good because you're seeing this. You've probably overlooked this because, again, you've been too trusting. Just look at, I mean, but again, trust me, most people would just see this as quite normal. I mean, look at this line here. I mean, now that I'm pointing it out, you might be like, here, this, I mean, again, it sounds like a very normal line to most people, except people who just are always looking to see if people are committing fraud. What do you think is going on here? It says a credit limit is proposed by sales staff. So the general argument is that credit limits can't or shouldn't be set by these lowly sales staff folk. The credit limits are set, if you like, by a more senior kind of sales director or someone who has reviewed the accounts and who has the power and authority to authorize these changes in the standing data. So this is something we see. This is a classic control that we see regularly, this question of who has control over the standing data. And this, sorry, not in a bad way, we just can't trust staff because someone can change. If sales staff can say, okay, you know what, listen, we'll change your, yeah, it's okay, we'll give you a new credit limit, it's fine, but your point is just as important, but there are two points there. One, the fact is, sorry,
I did think that initially, but because it said, this is what confuses me in these questions of the scenario, because it said approved by sales director.
Yes.
I thought, maybe that's okay then, but I guess not, is it?
Actually, you're right. Actually, I see. You know what I did? I even missed that. You know what? Let me even check the answer, because you know what the truth is. As soon as I saw this, I just knew. I just stopped here. We'll check the answers in a second. But you're right. But your second point is right. Is good. Good. Yes, we'll check the answers in a second. You might be right. I mean, I don't know why. Whenever I see sales staff proposing things, I always get skeptic. I always become a skeptic. And here we are. New customers obtained by the sales team are required to undergo a full credit check. That's good. On the basis of this, I think maybe on the basis of this, a credit limit is proposed by the sales staff. I think it really means, I think where they're going, and you're not wrong, is that there should be a system. I guess the question is, it's all about controls. I guess like all things, we want to take as much power out of the hands of humans and allow the system to kind of process that in terms of finding out that credit limit. But let's see how they phrase it. And again, like you're right, like you say, it's just about how we. New customers undergo credit check, after which a credit limit is proposed and approved. These credit limits are not reviewed. Over a period, it may be that the credit limits have been set too high. Credit limits should continue to be approved. You're right, actually. They don't have a problem. You're right, Natalie. They don't have a problem. I had a problem with the sales staff, actually, even proposing. I was in my mind, I was thinking that they should have a kind of a system, a more intricate system of assessing the credit limits, and then they just maintain it, and then you have the sales director approving it. So you're correct. Credit limits should continue to be approved, on a regular basis. Coming back to what you say, they should keep on reviewing the order history. So yeah, that's good. That's good. Cool, great stuff. Then let's look at the next one. Wait a minute, let's just go here and look at this one. Inventory. Let's go to James. Your thoughts on inventory. What do you feel about this one?
Yes, the main on this one was about the high value inventory held in a separate area across all of the sites with the same code. I said that could be quite dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I said that only as the code should be changed regularly.
Correct.
Different codes on each site, and not everyone should know the code.
Exactly. Perfect. Exactly. Good. So good. We'll come back. We'll do the next one when we come back to look at their answers. But you're right. That's the big point. So just something just to highlight here. This idea, this concept, this monthly perpetual inventory counts. Perpetual just means continuous. So many organizations, if they have many lines, like maybe 30 to 40 lines of inventory, maybe 50, 60, I don't know, that seems a lot. And when I say lines, major separate lines and separate products, even more, they can't do inventory stock every month. They trying to count everything on one day, even at the year, it might take too long because they might have several sites as well. So what they might do is they'll do regular, they'll do a stock take of one line every single month or one area. So that's what they mean here by monthly perpetual. So they focus on particular lines. So yeah, that's I think the first thing. So at some point, what we want to do is we want to be able to kind of visit to see how those inventory sites or how that counting actually works or operates, because it's really a test of controls. Remember I said stock takes are always a test of what controls are, if you like, in the organization. But so then like you said, I think then they end up saying due to the company's reorganization programs, some of the monthly inventory counts weren't performed. So again, the risk here is what you would expect of any lack of reconciliation or physical inventory to what's on your actual ledger, your inventory ledger, what you're saying. And then we have the risk that we have the risk of theft. We have the risk that the goods don't reconcile for whatever reason, valuation, theft. So we have those two issues there. Right, and let's then do the last one as well, and then we'll look at all those answers together. Dudley, your thoughts here? Bank recs, and in this, yes. What are your thoughts here?
Probably monthly reconciliations are a bit much. If you left ours for a month, it'd probably take about 3 weeks in order to reconcile. So probably needs to be done at least weekly, maybe not daily.
Yes, good. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much what I've got really. I think it's
yes.
For things to go too long without being reconciled and not being able to trace it back to the actual transaction.
That's true. Yeah. So good point. And it says where the sum of the reconciling items is significant, the reconciliation is sent to the financial controller for review. There's an interesting point there, because you're right, one, and two, generally what they seem to, this is the interesting question we want to ask. What does significant mean? So it seems as though that you have an accounts clerk who is quite junior, who does this rec, and if it is insignificant, that's the end of the control. There is no control over his work or her work if there are no significant, if the reconciling items aren't significant. But we know from a monitoring point of view that all reconciliations should always be signed or authorized. In general, just the idea that was the control done? What is the control? A reconciliation is a control, if you like. So in order to ensure the reconciliation was done, even if it's only a penny or two, it should be looked at or authorized. So so what they're sort of misconstruing a control for a substantive issue, even if it's a 1p, we still do a rec because that's a good control. So there's a problem there as well. And what about the last bit here? What were your thoughts?
I mean, it goes back to the same as the previous question, that he hasn't approved each individual line, he's just approved all invoice after 75 days. Appreciate the cash, maximise the cash, but it's just a blanket approval for all invoices and really needs to go through line by line.
Yeah.
Check that each supplier exists and what the purchase is actually for.
Yeah, good. Good point. Good. So let's see. Yes, good. And again, like I say with audit, I think it's just about you kind of just explaining out what you're doing. There's no. The truth is, trust me, you will never. You will have a lot to write. You're just thinking, I just need to get all of it in. So don't worry. You will always have. You will all write differently and have slight different opinions on some of the points. So let's just power through these. As James mentioned, high inventory stored in a secure location. Access not good enough. Too many people have access to it. Change them on a regular basis. Each site should have a unique code. However you discuss that, or you want to pull that out, there need to be differences there. Here you have these monthly counts. So if we're going to be able to rely on the fact, because we're only going to be able to really turn up at the year end, and at the year end you're not going to count everything because you've been counting things throughout the whole year. So well, there's two problems. I think you hadn't done some counts. There were going to be some things missing. So so it says, in order to rely on the inventory records for the decision making and the year end, all lines must be counted at least once a year, if you like, with high value items counted more regularly. If the counts are outstanding, some goods may not be counted, and this may lead to inventory records being incorrect, like we picked up on, because they tell us that some things won't be counted. So really the what we want to do is we just want to. I'm just going to say you just have to visit at least to observe, because you need to see the process of their way of counting to see who's supervising, and to see for that person to tell you that, listen, these are the things that were missing, and this is how we made up, or we adjusted the accounts. This is how we adjusted the ledger for the physical items missing, if you like. And this is how we wrote down the items in the ledger because they're now obsolete. You need to really see for you to trust what they're saying. I would probably argue that a visit to one of the control, so one of the stock counts during the year to observe the controls would work. Because here you're still and because your evidence is still better, your observation is still probably the best way of confirming that these controls are working. And again, so typically we need to understand what the materiality is with those items that have not been counted, really, ultimately, because I really don't know. I mean, he says at the year end, if any lines are identified as having not been counted, the company should organize an additional count exactly to ensure that all the items are confirmed. Because I was about to say, I don't know how if you haven't counted something, you have to count it. There's nothing else. We can't say, because it says it on the sheet that you have £5 million worth of stock. We need to know if you do have £5 million worth of stock. Someone has to count it, or you can argue, is it material? So the only control recommendation is that it has to be counted. It's valuation. It has to be counted. And then, like we picked up the bank rec, it says the bank rec is only reviewed if it's significant. So some reconciliations have not been reviewed. So what we want to review, if you like, all the bank recs, it's just reviewing it, if you like. That is because it's a control, if you like. It talks about compensating errors. You might have low errors. The key point here is that you want to review all of them. It's because bank recs are a key control which reduce the risk of fraud. It's just a control. So recs, all recs in general, if people know the recs are being done, there's a less likelihood of fraud. Again, you can see here, the risk is that if recs aren't being done, then we have less of an assurance, if you like. You said on a timely basis. I think Dudley mentioned that this could be done even more often and definitely. Yes, again, like you say, you want to kind of know clearly what you're paying. I think another big point is the number of days. But again, kind of highlighting what Dudley's saying, I remember doing an audit I always use it as a good example, in the north of Manchester. And what they did was a place called Nelson. And what they do is they make the cars for Virgin, the train cars. And they took ages to make a car, or it's not a straightforward, it's not a simple process. And so their payable days were like ridiculous. Their payable days were like close to 60 2-month type things. So 65. So I mean, I think which is why they're cautious about saying that the policy of making payments after 75 days should be reviewed. Some organizations might actually need 75 days, or that's just the culture in that industry. But you do want to look at it, because definitely by you, the fact that you delay means that you're missing out on discounts. There might be goodwill issues in terms of suppliers not wanting to give you, if you like, the raw materials that you need in future. And is it in line with the supplier payment terms? But again, like I say, all this is really doesn't, because you might have heard there was a time Tesco's were paying their farmers 90 days if you can afford it, and it's all about power, isn't it? But to a certain extent, you want to pick up, like what we said earlier, like the earlier question, put it in. This is just a mark scheme. It's still right. He should understand what he's paying out for, and 2, he should look at the terms. Also, you want to look at the terms to make sure you're paying within the terms. So those are all the controls that we're putting in place. Are you paying within the terms in terms of the time limit and not incurring charges as well? Cool. Great stuff, guys. Awesome. Great. So we've done 2 questions there. I think those are quite comprehensive from just to understand, looking at controls. We will carry on with internal audit next week. And then the following week we will do audit procedures. And then that means we can then do more of the questions on kind of controls and audit procedures together, which is kind of like the whole 164, 165, 166, and carry on. But again, I hope you're starting to settle into the process of doing audit and just see that actually it's not too bad. It's just doing it regularly, so your language, so you're writing exactly what they're saying, and your language is lining up. Cool, great stuff. So yes, please, for homework, if you have time. I will mark it. I'm sorry, it is usually a bit late. It's crazy, as you can see, with all this. We're all still homeschooling and all kinds of things, just trying to keep up and whatever. But I will still mark it before the class, and have it for you. So if you can do 165 and 166, just have a go. It'll give you an experience of starting to look at substantive procedures, even if you're thinking, oh yeah, I would have written that kind of thing. That's what I would have done to test for that. And we'll carry on next week. Cool. Is that good?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome, guys. Great stuff. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather.
And you.
And if you're going to drive, just make sure you go down to the castle, have a look at the castle. If you can see the castle, you can drive. Great stuff. See you later.
Thanks, Wayne.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.